Department of Petroleum Resources vows to sanction all illegal LPG retail outlets with steep penalties over Kaduna gas explosion. People's Democratic Party blasts President Buhari over medical tourism comments, calls it self-indictment. In international news, U.S. killing of Iranian general stokes various reactions as Iran ends nuclear deal. And in sport, D Tigres star Ogoke Ejiogo denies retirement rumors.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatuji. The Department of Petroleum Resources threatens stiffer penalty against all illegal gas retail outlets and operators that may have contributed to the Kaduna gas explosion. DPR's Northwest Zonal Operations Controller, Issa Tafidi, said 5 persons, including a professor, died in the gas explosion. Valuable properties were also destroyed in the inferno over the weekend. Tafida also said the facility where the explosion occurred is operated by an illegal gas retailing vendor who illegally stores, decants and sells cooking and industrial gases. He said DPR has also enjoined such illegal operators to follow laid down rules and regulations by obtaining necessary licenses to ensure safe handling of gas. The agency says it has approved and licensed nearly 40 LPG plants in Kaduna State in 2019. The country's power distribution companies has declared that the new electricity tariffs shall become enforceable from the beginning of April. The discourse explained the new tariffs ordered by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission is in place to cater for revenue shortfalls in the sector. The discourse says slight increments to cater for tariff shortfalls will be gradually passed on to consumers until full completion at the end of 2021. The discourse explained the NERC was empowered by the Electric Power Sector Reform Act to carry out minor reviews of the multi-year tariff order of 2015 twice a year. The People's Democratic Party has described President Buhari's comment on Nigerians going abroad for medical tourism as ridiculous and self-indicting. The party says the president is the #1 among Nigerian overseas medical tourists. Buhari said at the inauguration and handover of completed projects at the Alex Ekweme Federal University Teaching Hospital, Abakaliki, that Nigerians should stop going abroad but stay home for medical treatment. The president was represented at the event by the Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Ogbonaya Onu. PDP National Publicity Secretary Kola Ologbojinyo says the Buhari administration that has failed to provide adequate health care in Nigeria is now advising other citizens against foreign medical trips. He urged the president to lead by example by patronizing a Nigerian public medical facility on his next medical appointment. The party said it would experience the healthcare facility to which Nigerians had been subjected under his government. Nigerian former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has advised the leadership of the People's Democratic Party to focus on rebuilding the image and structure of the party rather than focusing on elections. The party's former presidential candidate tweeted on Saturday that members of his party should focus on rebuilding and strengthening the party for the challenges ahead, rather than focusing on elections at this early period. Meanwhile, the ruling All Progressives Congress has taken a jab at the main opposition party PDP and its 2019 presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar over the recent tweets to his party members ahead of the 2023 general elections. APC describes PDP's 16-year rule as, quote, an era synonymous with wastefulness and festered corruption, which the country is still struggling with, end quote. The party says Atiku is focusing on how to corner the 2023 presidential ticket of the PDP or any of the other political parties where he may choose to purchase his ticket. APC says Atiku and the PDP represents the wasted past, which Nigerians have chosen to discard and correct. The party says that was an era when national assets was a bazaar for cronies and friends, an era when funds were approved and released for projects that were never executed, an era of waste and impunity, an era of voodoo economy, and an era when corruption was a state policy. And still on politics, Osun State Governor Ogbega Oyetola and leaders of the All Progressives Congress APC in the state are calling for unity in the party. It says only a united party would fast-track the developmental efforts of the administration. APC leaders say unity must be paramount in the political dealings of members, especially within the progressives field, to guarantee development. Coming up, African news. Turkish troops deployed to Libya to prop up one of the rival governments in the country. And later, international news. Iraq expels U.S. troops as Iran ends nuclear deal over U.S. killing of General Qasem Soleimani.
Today, title reach for me to settle blessing. Blessing for you. When this girl first got this my shop called network. Now so on top of NTF4G phone. Now this girl could press. I provoke. I power no in short. Reach what time, eh? The ambulance to make her tell her to make she mash her at. Come up from my shop. And later I go realize say this girl go snap am. Put her for inside internet. They take her to adverts. Now I make customers that they come with my shop. Blessing, I want make you help me manage my shop number 2.
Maremo, but I think Nami and Blessing start work the same time.
Now you and Blessing start work the same time. Blessing, you better start with a T-shirt for top of your 4G MTN phone.
Business makes sense on top super fast and reliable MTN 4G. Join MTN, make you enjoy double data.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. Turkish troops have begun moving into Libya to ensure stability for the UN-recognized government of national accord in the capital Tripoli. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said on Sunday his country was deploying military units to Libya to support the embattled UN-backed government of Libyan Prime Minister Fayez Sarraj that has been facing an offensive by the rival in the country's eastern forces loyal to Commander General Khalifa Haftar. Erdogan has said in a televised interview that the goal of the Turkish armed forces is not to fight, but to ensure a ceasefire in Libya. Libya has been torn by violence since longtime ruler Muammar Gaddafi was deposed and killed in 2011. The UN-backed government is supported by Turkey and its ally Qatar, while General Haftar is backed by Egypt and the UAE. Nigeria's Inspector General of Police Mohammed Adamu has placed police commands and formations nationwide on red alert after an American drone strike killed top Iranian military commander Qasem Soleimani last week. The Nigerian police said on Sunday the state is on a heightened alert because the killing could spark public disturbances in the country. The Nigerian police force said in a statement on Sunday, quote, "This proactive measure follows intelligence reports the sequel to the recent killing of an Iranian general. Some domestic interests are planning to embark on massive public disturbances and sabotage," end quote. Soleimani was assassinated in a U.S. drone strike in Iraq on Friday on the orders of President Donald Trump. Soleimani was said to have spearheaded Iranian military operations in the Middle East and was regarded as a terrorist by the U.S. Philip Smith of the Washington Institute to Study Shia Islamic militarism told BBC that Iran might decide to hit the United States in Africa. The police said senior police officials had been directed to ensure maximum surveillance and security of lives and property across the nation. More on the Soleimani killing in our international segment coming up later. Ghana's weakening currency is taking a toll on small businesses in the country. The currency they used to exchange at one cedi to one US dollar now requires a few more cedis to accomplish the same goal. Nabil Ahmed Rafai reports.
Nana Adom imports most of his electrical goods from China. It's a surefire way to keep prices low, yet things are getting more expensive. The continuous depreciation of the Ghanaian cedi against the US dollar means he's paying more for the same products.
I already import the goods with the dollar and bring it to Ghana here. We use cedis to buy it. So if the customer come and the price of the goods has been increased, they compared a lot.
In 2008, one cedi bought you $1. In 2020, you need almost 6 to buy that same dollar. There are a number of factors at play, the biggest of which is capital flight. Investors have pulled large sums of money out of the country, concerned over its fiscal health and wary of the government's ability to rein in spending. The impact has been most felt among importers and traders, who say the depreciation is driving up the cost of doing business.
If your capital is like, let's say, $20,000 and stuff, and the exchange rate is, let's assume, 5 cedi. Definitely, if there is, increment in the exchange rate, there's no way you are going to get that 20,000 cedis with the same Ghana cedis. Definitely, you need to go in for more.
Last year, the central bank was forced to inject $800 million into the country's reserves to halt a sharp decline in the cedi's value. The government also issued billions of dollars worth of bonds to boost dollar inflows. Both measures helped stabilize the tailspin, but only for a short while.
The Bank of Ghana plans to auction $715 million this year to tackle the cedi depreciation. Traders here hope this intervention will help reduce the cost of doing business as they import goods into the country.
But some economists say it won't fix the underlying issues.
The cedi will still struggle because fundamentally the structure is still import based. That hasn't been taken off. Despite the 1D1F, the industrialization drive, it has not gotten to a point where it can resolve the deficit in the forex supply.
Economists want the government to focus on long-term changes instead, such as reining in public spending, boosting productivity and addressing Ghana's trade and budget deficits. Nana Adum and many traders affected by the weak cedi also want steps taken to boost the country's overall economic fortunes, as they believe in the long-term impact on their businesses.
Tunisia says it is working on plans to improve social services for refugees and asylum seekers in the country. Adnan Chawochi has the details.
The agreement provides for the creation of a joint committee including the Ministry and the Council for Refugees to determine the means of supporting this fragile population and monitoring the centers hosting them, as well as updating data regulating their legal status.
Article 26 of the Constitution guarantees the rights of refugees and asylum seekers, but this is not enough. The Tunisian state has domestic and international obligations in this field. Our aims are to further reinforce the rights of refugees.
The minister added that the government is preparing for the flow of tens of thousands of Libyan nationals in the next few days.
Tunisians do not consider Libyans as refugees or asylum seekers because they are our brothers, and this is their country. We'll stand with the Libyan people. We welcomed more than 1 million Libyans in 2011. We're ready to host the Libyans and other people from African countries. Tunisia will provide the necessary assistance.
President of the Tunisian Council for Refugees said that the civil society is working closely with the state and the UNHCR to accompany African refugees and asylum seekers.
The Council works in coordination with the High Commission for Refugees in Tunisia to answer all questions relating to migration and asylum seekers and refugees in all regions of the country. Problems exist in Tunisia, as is the case with several countries in the world, but we are providing a permanent assistance.
Training sessions will be organized in Tunisia and abroad to support the capacities of the Ministry of Social Affairs in the field of supervision and crisis management. Statistics indicate that the total number of refugees and asylum seekers in Tunisia has reached 3,117. The Minister of Social Affairs stressed that his ministry grants great importance to the cooperation with the civil society organizations active in the field of refugees.
When we return, international news. Iraq expels U.S. troops as Iran ends nuclear deal over U.S. killing of General Qasem Soleimani. And later, sport. D-Tigre star Ogoke Ejiogo denies retirement rumors. Mourners packed the streets of Tehran on Monday for ceremonies to pay homage to top Iranian military commander Qasem Soleimani, who was killed in a U.S. strike in Baghdad on Friday. Meanwhile, the country announced on Sunday the fifth and final step to end its commitment to the landmark 2015 nuclear deal. Iran announced it will no longer abide by the limits contained in the deal. This development, coupled with the killing of the country's top general by the U.S., could bring Iran closer to building an atomic bomb. It could also prop up the Islamic State group to stage a comeback in Iraq. That combination could make the Middle East a far more dangerous and unstable place. The killing of General Soleimani and the impending Iranian retaliation has put the Middle East region on edge. Officials are scrambling to anticipate where the strikes may occur. Analysts say Iran has plenty of possible targets to pick proxies in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen to carry out reprisals. Meanwhile, Iraq's parliament has voted to expel U.S. troops over the Soleimani killing. Reporter Toby Moose has that story.
Iranian state television announced on Sunday that the country was abandoning its commitments to the 2015 nuclear deal that saw Iran suspend its nuclear program in return for the easing of sanctions. In neighboring Iraq, the parliament has approved a resolution to expel U.S. forces as the consequences of last week's U.S. assassination of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani unfold. The move comes as the US-led coalition said it was pausing operations against ISIL in Iraq as it turns to protecting US personnel following rocket attacks on the Green Zone in Baghdad and Iraqi bases on Saturday. The vote in the Iraqi parliament, mainly backed by Shia lawmakers, is to expel around 5,000 US troops who are in the country to help fight ISIL in a mission that started 4 years ago. Sunday's vote is non-binding and not final until Iraq's Prime Minister signs the bill. Additional legislation will be needed to make the order to expel the US forces official. Already there are fears that this could open a space for a possible resurgence of ISIL, a group that has been battered but not eliminated. The unofficial coalition that worked together to take down ISIL was made up of Kurdish forces, Iraqi Shia militias, the Iraqi army, and US troops. US President Donald Trump's decisions have shattered that coalition. The Kurds feel betrayed after Trump removed US troops from northern Syria last October. That cleared the way for Turkey to attack Kurdish forces. The US continues to double down that going after Soleimani was the right decision to make. President Trump has continued to make threats against Iran, including possibly attacking Iranian cultural sites, which could be considered a war crime. But right now, the assassination of the Iranian general has raised more questions than answers, and this is just the beginning.
Experts are blaming global warming and ineffective countermeasures by the government for the severe casualties and damage brought by the Australian bushfires, which have been burning a large part of eastern Australia and have already killed 24 persons as of Monday. Worst hit is the state of New South Wales and Victoria. Houses and properties have been severely damaged. Greater China director of UK-based non-profit organization, the Climate Group, Hu Changchuan, said on CGTN in Beijing on Sunday, global warming and government's poor response contributed to the losses in the fires.
I think climate change and also somehow the poorly coordinated government response to the emergency have this really made this situation even worse. On the climate change side, the year 2019 is already recognized as the hottest and driest year.
Non-resident fellow with the Center for China and Globalization, a leading Chinese non-government think tank based in Beijing, said the natural disasters brought by global warming is a worldwide issue which requires unified efforts of all countries.
Resources, fossil fuels, it's really difficult to go against that political tide. It's not just an Australia problem. Look at the wildfires in California. Look at the hurricane damage in places like Florida. And it's a juxtaposition of different factors: economic development, politics, climate change.
On a lighter note, the annual stocktake of animals is underway at London Zoo as we enter a new year. The staff are armed with clipboards, calculators and cameras to count creatures big and small, from tigers to tarantulas and some that cannot be described. Reporter Juliet Mann has the story.
Oh, the life of a playful penguin, making a splash and gobbling sprats. The zookeepers have their work cut out as they check all are present and correct. There are 91 penguins at London Zoo, including 6 chicks that hatched right here at the beach.
They might look the same to you, but to a keeper, all the penguins look different. So they have bands on their wings, which help identify them, but all penguins have a unique set of feather marks on their chest. So every keeper can actually look at their penguin and identify them because they know exactly what each penguin looks like. So very much like we have different faces, each penguin looks very different. You just need to get to know them.
Clipboards, calculators and cameras at the ready. Zookeepers tally up every mammal, bird, reptile and invertebrate each year as a requirement of London Zoo's licence. Some animals, like the critically endangered lions, are as easy to count as 1, 2, 3, 4. Others need an incentive to show their face.
Squirrel monkeys are tricky to count because they're nimble and quick, and even though the keepers know who's who, they don't hang around.
The smallest creatures at the zoo, the leafcutter ants, are counted in colonies because it would be impossible to track each one individually. With some 500 different species, the big count takes keepers almost a week to complete, and the information recorded is shared with zoos around the world.
Or if I'm counting animals myself as a zookeeper, it's always that reminder that the numbers in the wild are diminishing, and that's a really important responsibility that we've all got to try and stop that from happening.
The total inventory to catalogue is around 19,000 animals, so the 100 or so zookeepers are well and truly outnumbered by creatures great and small.
Up next, sport. D-Tigress star Ogoke Ejiogo denies retirement rumors. Please stay with us. Nigeria Professional League Match Day 12 saw Plateau United defeating Aimba United 4-0 to consolidate on their #1 position on the NPFL standings. This is the heaviest defeat in recent times for the People's Elephants, who incidentally are the reigning NPFL champions as well as the NPFL club of the decade. Tigress point and shooting guard Sarah Ogoke Ejiogo says she's still available for national team selection, thereby putting to an end rumors of her retiring from the squad. Ogoke Ejiogo led Mozambique's side to a successful defense of their title at the FIBA African Champions Cup for women in Egypt in December. That is in a news break. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji.